Having addictions is a tough topic most of the time that people talk about, but I'm gonna actually expose why that is what led me to making over $30,000 a month. So let me preface this as something. Whenever us as people always talk about addiction and being, or can't not live without certain aspects, it all comes down to the human psychology, and this typically always revolves around dopamine. And I would actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it'd be a really great video to break down my dopamine detox way of living life for higher quality, higher enjoyment out of each single thing I do, like eating my lunch, right? I don't watch anything, none of that. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that with your specific human psychology, all right, if there's something that gives us like a tiny amount of dopamine rush, because that's really what addiction all comes down to, is getting a dopamine rush, is involved in certain activities that typically regress you, because addiction is defined as normally a negative term. Now, when you put it into a different perspective, right, and business and everything is all really about the types of perspectives that we perceive as human beings, think of it in the fashion of, okay, well, if you're addicted to drinking, then that's a problem. If you're addicted to porn, that's a problem. If you're addicted to smoking pot, that's a problem, okay? So there's all these bad scenarios, because when you overly extend yourself to these certain activities that you just want more of it and more of it and more of it, and this is where you see it impact and impede your life. And you don't want that at all, because what we want is control. And we like to think that we have that, where in reality we don't. So how do we fix this, and how do we use it for good? I say the best thing comes into, I guess I'll talk about it now, the dopamine detox of things. Right now, as us humans, we're so, in this day and age, programmed to be able to respond to any little thing that we see that pops up, that gives us a little ooh, wow factor that happens inside of our brains or our chest or whatever the deal is. And that's basically your neuron receptors receiving and retrieving this information as something that's enjoyable, that's easy, and that I want to continue to do, right? Compared to something that's harder, tougher, and not something that I really want to do. This is why you'll see that it's a lot easy to sleep in, to go watch a movie, to go ahead and get that feeling from the drugs or the alcohol. Why can't it be the same thing for going to the gym, for working on your business, for eating healthy? And the reality is, it does. But why are we then just so programmed to want to gravitate towards the bad things rather than the good things? Now, this is where it's going to loop back to my beginning, where I said it's all about perspective, okay? The way that we look and perceive things as, what do you perceive the gym as? Because genuinely, your answer to that question, and I use the gym because I think the gym is just psychologically one of the most common themes when we talk about something like this. So ultimately, what does the gym feel like to you? Do you feel that if you get up at 7 a.m., go straight to the gym, that it's a task, a pain? Do you feel that it's a little too much work? Because why do you think New Year's comes around, new year, new me, I want to go to the gym, I want to get fit, let's go to the movies, or whatever the deal is. And why do you think after 1 or 2 months that, oh, we're all back to normal, I haven't gone to the gym in 10 months, or whatever the deal is? It's because guess what? We're not in that consistent vision yet, because we keep seeing the gym as this extra thing that we have to do, right? And this is really important with habit tracking and task tracking. If you don't already do that, I highly suggest to do it. There's actually this very interesting app that I'll showcase to you today that I recently bought on my phone. It's called Streaks. And yes, I know I paid for it, but it's a one-time purchase app. I don't know if the camera will focus. It's literally as simple as this. You set up simple tasks, right? And then each day you just hold it down to complete the task. Very, very simple. Same thing for tracking my calories. I have Cali Eye. I just take a picture of my food. I'm not like so in detailingly need to know how each specific calorie enters my body. I just want to know a very good idea, right? And then I also have WAP. Those are the three things, or sorry, the Whoop. These are the three things that I'm using right now to track my health, my streaks, and my eating habits, right? And it's super, super efficient because this just does everything for you. So I just review the stats and making sure that I'm staying within my steps per day, my sleep, understanding my sleep debt, understanding my heart rate variability, making sure that my body's actually recovering from strain and stress, things like that. And trust me, I'm the last person to be like extremely obsessed with the way that this stuff works. But the idea is that you want to have this good enough consciousness of how these things go, because ultimately it builds back into our conversation of how you can turn this addiction to be good for you. So when you think about going to the gym, right? Instead of viewing it like that, you want to view it as a privilege, as something that's exciting to do, and as something that's going to make you more buff and more fit, which is ultimately what we want, all right? So instead of chasing your short-term satisfaction, focus everything on chasing long-term satisfaction, okay? I made YouTube videos where they've gotten a couple hundred views, and now like a year later, some of them have thousands, right? And I'm not reaching the biggest audience on the planet, but what point I'm trying to portray is that the minute you take a step back in your life and rid yourself first of this dopamine satisfaction, scrolling the reels or eating the junk food, whatever the deal may be, is switching that short-term to long-term satisfaction. So understand that, is this the best move on the board right now for me? And I don't remember exactly who said this quote, but someone said this quote to me where it said, whenever you are faced with making a decision, okay, there's a lot of people that kind of fly off the handle, and don't get me wrong, you need to have quick understanding of making smart and fast decisions, but ultimately you want to be able to assess it and to understand it and to make sure that when you are making this decision that it's in the best interest of whoever the parties are that involved. So the quote was that whenever you're faced with a decision, you want to accept to learn to understand what are the long-term benefits and what is the best possible move on the chessboard, right? So if you are trying to maintain dedication, they wake up at 6:30 a.m. and it's 10 o'clock at night and you're thinking, all right, I got to go to bed now to get 8 hours of sleep to my mind, because your mind is everything. If you have poor sleep, poor mind, then your work is going to be not good. Your friends are like, yo, let's go hang out. Let's hit the club tonight. Where are you at? Let's go hang out with your boys. We love you. We haven't seen you in forever. When you're faced with that decision, what is it that you're going to make? There's two sides of the coin. There's, yes, make a memory with them that's unforgettable and it's going to be a really nice time. Or do I just stick to my routine and ultimately just be obsessed with now understanding, all right, the long-term effect from that is not going to outweigh it, right? Maybe if the boys want to go to, I don't know, nice early business dinner or just something else that's not, potentially detrimental to your health, let's just say, for example, you want to make sure that you're making that decision in full thought process, right? Without, as I mentioned before, outside influence. And now I'm not saying that like everybody who goes to the club is like a loser. I'm not saying that whatsoever. And I'm not saying you definitely can't go to the club, but I'm just saying there's a time and place for everything, and just understanding when you should make that choice. So when you ultimately now relay to yourself, these are the long-term benefits and idea, you make that the new goal of your solution. So I always say that, like with business and everything, why do we report earnings on a quarterly basis, not a monthly basis? Why do we look at things from a year-over-year growth perspective? Is because long-term wise it matters, right? Let's say if I traded for a living and I did 35K last month, lost 10K this month, and made 40K next month, am I going to look at this month like a huge failure? Or am I going to look at that quarterly gap saying, wow, we did, 65K, right, in profit? So the point that I'm trying to make is you become obsessed with these long-term outcomes. And how this is going to feed back into the addiction portion is that you just need to be addicted to doing the right things. Because ultimately what? We said that we chase the short-term satisfaction to make us want to feel good, correct? Whatever that case may be. So why don't we chase the long-term satisfaction that also does make us feel good? Because no doubt about the same thought process you had about don't want to get up right now, it's too early, it's too cold, I want to go to the gym, could just sleep in, get extra sleep, rest my body. No, when you think about it as that feeling, and you know what I'm talking about. And again, I'm just using the gym because it's a universal feeling. The feeling of when you're done working out, you had a good workout, and now you're coming back to work. Let's say if you go early in the morning and it's before everybody gets up, before everybody's working, you know that you're already done with the gym before they even wake up. It's a great feeling. And you need to replace that, I don't want to do it because of this, to why I'm doing it. And then you get obsessed and addicted to the success of the journey that now you're not chasing these outcomes, okay? And trust me, I went through this exactly in my first year when I full-time did my business, because I was so obsessed with chasing our month-over-month income, how well each campaign did, rather than looking at them as an overall, or not going to the gym because I wanted to catch up on work, whatever the deal is. I realized that these top people who are super, super good at what to do, they're quite literally addicted to work, to going to the gym, and they're addicted to being the best person of themselves. So when they're addicted to this and they create a routine, right? And as you know, addiction could be something hard to break. But if it's addicted to the right type of thing where it's, I want to be the best version of me. I can't let other people influence me into bad decisions. I can't not make a right decision with the cloudy mindset state, right? Whatever the scenario may be. Ultimately, just all these pieces at the end of the day need to come together and showcase to you that, listen, this is why I'm working, this is the long-term goal, and you need to know if whatever choice I'm about to make helps or impedes that goal, okay? Because depending on what you want, if this is entrepreneurship, just a side hustle, you're just watching this in general, you have to build this routine for yourself and just understand that when you take these portions of problems or sins into a high-level overview, you ultimately then create yourself a ton of leverage. Even if it's just getting better 1% every day, you'll be 37 times better at the end of the year. 37 times if it's just 1% each day. So the point that I'm trying to make is that when you are chasing for success, right, you really need to chase and enjoy that journey along the way and become obsessed with that success, because that fuels you to continue to move forward rather than having it attached to these short-term outcomes that will ultimately do you no good. All right? And when you take the high-level overview, you have that mental understanding that even if today, let's say something might have happened, I don't know, I'll take the example where I had one day at my house and the pipe broke, right, for example, and the water was going I was trying to like fix it, the roof was leaking, I was like, oh my god, there's so many things going on, I'm trying to wait for the repairman, it's storming outside, I don't know what to do, my roof was like about to cave in, and ultimately that's what I was dealt with, that was the card I was dealt with that day. So could I be upset that, yeah, I didn't get to work and do an entire day of what I want to do, because I was so distracted with the pipes and stuff? I could. But does that help me towards a long-term goal? No. No. What happened? Move on. What's next? How can I make it better? And just keep the next foot forward. And just by being obsessed and addicted to, I need to succeed, and you do it the right way for you, then you're going to see yourself transition from these short-term satisfactions into long-term success. And because we've so changed our mind and mentally geared towards hitting that remark and that goal, you will see that 37 times to, I don't know, 150x times better. And then now in year over year, see that, wow, I made so much progress, I made so much progress, I made so much progress. And it's not so much even tied to the monetary number, tied to the actual amount or whatever the deal is, right? So, point being is that by becoming obsessed with what you do and how you do it, you'll separate yourself from the competition. You'll beat your competitors because you are remaining with this long-term overview, and by just sheer amount of statistical data that showcases that you keep trying your best, you go at it time and time over again. Why do you think business is commonly referred to as an exponential curve, right? And eventually you'll hit it, right? I had a time before where I thought I was doomed. And then we closed, we doubled our revenue in 1 month, all right? So just keep that as your main output. Remember that the long-term goal is always our main goal.